All right, strap in everyone, because we're about to launch a deep dive into Carol Danvers, also known as Captain Marvel. You guys went all out with the source material, so let's get right into it.
You know, what always gets me about Carol's story is how she becomes Captain Marvel. It's not like your typical superhero origin story.
Yeah, what makes her different? I mean, we know it's not a spider bite or anything.
No, not even close. We're talking about complete transformation, a total game changer.
Okay, so for those who need a refresher, Carol becomes a Kree hybrid, right?
Exactly.
And the Kree, they're like the ultimate alien civilization, right? They're super advanced, techie, the whole 9 yards.
Precisely. And get this, Carol gets caught in this huge explosion. It involved a Kree device, something called the Psyche Magnetron.
Okay, the Psyche Magnetron. What's that do? Rearrange your sock drawer using only gravity.
Even wilder. Think of it as this device that can mess with your genes, basically rewrite your DNA completely. And the explosion, it doesn't just give Carol powers, it fuses her with Kree DNA, making her this human-Kree hybrid.
Wow. Okay, so not your average Tuesday then. The sources mentioned something about fragmented memories, almost like she has this whole other life in her head.
Exactly. Imagine suddenly having these flashes of memories that aren't yours, glimpses into the life of a Kree warrior. This isn't just a physical transformation, it messes with her mind, too. So Carol develops the split personality. Carol Danvers, the person she knows, and Mrs. Marvel, this superhero fueled by Kree memories. And get this, they're totally separate, unaware of each other at first.
Whoa, that's a recipe for disaster right there. No wonder she struggles with who she is, right? It's like trying to put together a puzzle, but half the pieces are from a different box.
And it affects everything, how she sees herself, how she controls her powers, everything. It's like she's constantly trying to merge these two sides, the human and the Kree, into one person.
That's really interesting. Okay, but speaking of powers, we're not just talking super strength and flight here, right?
Oh no, that's just the tip of the iceberg. Imagine going from those basic powers to tapping into, like, the most powerful energy source in the universe.
Okay, now you've got to elaborate on that. What kind of energy are we talking about?
Picture a white hole.
A white hole, like the opposite of a black hole.
Exactly. Instead of sucking everything in, it spews out ridiculous amounts of energy, constantly. And Carol, she becomes a conduit for that power, manipulating gravity, even restarting the sun.
Hold on, she can restart the SUN.
Yep. But here's the catch. That much power, it's unstable, like trying to hold a mini-sun in your hand. Dangerous.
Wow, okay. So she's dealing with the split personality, learning to control crazy powers, and trying not to blow up the Earth. No pressure, Carol.
And here's where it gets really interesting. Her internal struggles, they affect her powers. The more she taps into her powers, the more unstable things get.
So it's like a feedback loop. Her mental state affects her powers, and her powers affect her mental state.
You got it. And that's what makes her such a compelling character. She's a work in progress, always pushing her limits, and sometimes making a mess of things.
I'm hooked already. Where do we even go from here?
Well, remember those fragmented memories we talked about? Turns out that's just the beginning of her identity crisis. Up next, we're diving into a life-changing experience, an encounter that makes her question everything she thought she knew.
Okay, now I need to hear more about this. Let's pause for a moment and then come back to unpack this next chapter in Captain Marvel's insane journey. All right, so we're back, and let's be honest, this isn't your typical recap. Last time we were talking about Carol, Ms. Marvel tapping into a white hole's energy, but also struggling with who she is.
Exactly. It's like she's trying to balance on a tightrope, and that rope is about to get a whole lot shakier. We talked about her Kree heritage, those memories. Well, her past is about to jump out and say hello.
And that's where Rogue comes in. Right?
Oh yeah, Rogue's about to enter the scene.
Just the name gives me chills. But for those who might not know, what makes Rogue so terrifying?
Imagine touching someone and suddenly you have their powers.
Okay, that's wild.
But it gets weirder. She doesn't just absorb powers, she gets their memories, their personality, everything. She's a hero, but she literally takes from others to be strong. And when it comes to Carol, this encounter, it's bad. Really bad.
Yeah, the sources weren't kidding around. This isn't like oh, I'm a little drained kind of thing. This is life-changing stuff.
It's a complete game changer. They fight, and Rogue's powers go haywire. She absorbs Mrs. Marvel's powers, but she also takes a huge chunk of Carol's memories, her personality, everything. Imagine losing not just your strength, but parts of who you are.
Talk about a nightmare. That's gotta mess you up.
Yeah.
It's no wonder she has trouble trusting people, always on guard.
It's like a fundamental part of her was ripped away. And that's where we see her trying to rebuild, but it's not easy.
She turns to alcohol, pushes people away, doubts herself constantly, all while trying to get back what she lost.
Exactly. It's heartbreaking, but it also makes her incredibly relatable. She's not invincible, she's human, she hurts, she makes mistakes.
I think that's why people connect with her, you know? She's flawed, but it gets even more intense.
Oh yeah, it does. Years later, she gets trapped inside Rogue's mind. Can you imagine that? Trapped in the head of the person who stole a part of you.
Talk about facing your demons. What's that even like? It's like a mental battle.
It's a total head trip. Carol's reliving that traumatic experience, but from Rogue's point of view, it's chaotic, confusing, and ultimately it's about forgiveness.
Forgiveness. Does she actually forgive Rogue after everything?
It's a tough question. This encounter forces them both to confront what happened. It's not about forgetting, but about understanding, maybe even respecting each other.
Wow, that's powerful stuff. It shows how much she's grown, how strong she is. Okay, so we've covered the Kree, the powers, the trauma, but what about space? We haven't even touched on the whole cosmic side of Captain Marvel.
Oh yeah, we're about to blast off to the far reaches of the galaxy. Remember that whole Kree heritage thing? Well, get ready, because it's about to get real interesting.
All right, so we're back, and wow, Carol's journey has been wild. We're talking Kree, powers, trauma, the works, but now we're going cosmic.
Yeah, get ready for liftoff, because we're leaving Earth's atmosphere for this part. Remember how we talked about her Kree side? Well, it's not just about memories anymore. This is about embracing her heritage, a whole galaxy of heritage.
Right. And the sources mentioned these starjammers. They sound kind of cool, actually. Like space pirates. Am I close?
Think less pirates, more like space rebels. They're fighting for freedom, sticking it to the man across the galaxy.
That sounds right up Carol's alley, honestly.
But, oh, absolutely. She's all about challenging authority, fighting for what's right, even when it's tough. And the Starjammers, they're a perfect fit for her. It's where she starts to realize her potential as a leader, but on her own terms.
So she finds a place where she belongs, fighting for something bigger than herself.
That's it. And then things get really interesting with Alpha Flight.
Wait, Alpha Flight? The Canadian super team.
The one and only. But get this. They start a space program.
Hold on. They go to space. I always thought they were more, grounded.
Right. But they realize that threats to Earth, they can come from anywhere, even across the galaxy. And who better to lead their space program than someone who's been there, done that, fighting cosmic baddies?
Makes sense. They need someone who knows the ropes. Or, space lanes, I guess. But speaking of space, what about the Skrulls? Those master impersonators.
Ah, the Skrulls. They take blending in to a whole new level. Shape-shifting. They can become anyone, even down to the DNA. And during this big cosmic battle, a Skrull, they impersonate Carol.
Wait, a fake Carol running around. Talk about adding insult to injury.
Right. And no one suspects a thing. It throws everyone into chaos. Not only is there a Skrull imposter on the loose, but it makes everyone question what's real, who to trust, even Carol. If someone can copy you perfectly, what does it even mean to be you?
That's deep. Talk about an identity crisis. No wonder the sources called this a turning point for her.
Exactly. It's this experience, this violation that pushes her to become Captain Marvel.
So this is it, the culmination of everything she's been through.
Yeah. It's more than just a new name or a costume. She's taking on this legacy, a symbol of hope for everyone. But with that comes responsibility.
And speaking of responsibility, what about her seeing the future? That's a lot to handle.
Right. Imagine knowing what's going to happen before it does. Carol, she starts working with this inhuman, Ulysses, who has precognitive abilities. They team up to prevent disasters before they occur.
Sounds like a recipe for disaster in itself, if you ask me.
Yeah.
How do you decide what to prevent? What about free will? All that.
Exactly. And that's where the conflict comes in. Not everyone agrees with Carol's methods. It causes this huge rift in the superhero community, even leading to, well, Civil War II. But that's a story for another time.
Wow, okay, so we've gone from 0 to 100 real quick.
That's Carol Danvers for you. Her story is a whirlwind of cosmic battles, personal struggles, and these huge philosophical questions about power, identity, what it means to be a hero.
It's been a wild ride, exploring her journey, all the twists and turns. Any final thoughts before we wrap things up?
What always stands out to me is her resilience. No matter what life or the galaxy throws at her, she never gives up. She shows us that it's not about being perfect. It's about growing, learning, and always striving to be better. And that's something we can all take inspiration from.
Perfectly said. Well, on that note, thanks for joining us for this incredible deep dive into the world of Captain Marvel. It's been a blast.